Hey, Dane Cash here with just a quick message to say that if you like this podcast, or really any of our podcasts, you should become an Escape Collective member. Head on over to escapecollective.com/member and sign up. Sign up so that we keep making these podcasts. And sign up if you like exclusives. If you're into the racing stuff, we're on the ground at the Classics, at the Tour de France. Lots of exclusive stories there. We've also got things like Geek Warning. We're breaking the stories on the tech side. Ronan's got the performance process. There's all sorts of things that you're getting access to by becoming a member. And it's pretty easy to do. Again, just head over to escapecollective.com/member. Sign up, support everything we're doing here at Escape Collective.
Everybody, welcome back to the Rest Day with Jack Haig. We've had a bit of an off season, both myself and the podcast, and I thought it was time to get back into it. Season 2, we've just passed January 1st, new year, new me, so here we are. I sat down with Pavel Sivakov, good friend of mine here in Andorra, to chat about his season with UAE, the Tour de France experience with Poggy, and his really good second half of the season where he had a really good Vuelta España, went on to World Championships, had a good ride there, and we discussed how riding for your national team and being in the breakaway with your teammate Poggy, how that kind of affects the race and the situation. And then he went on to do the Italian Classics and Tour Guangxi. We spoke a little bit about racing in China, what his thoughts are about finishing the season there, doing a more international UCI race calendar, and we touch on salary caps, budget caps, because I had a few questions on the Escape Collective Discord channel asking me to give the question to a couple of riders. Now, me personally, I've basically just been in Andorra. I spent the off-season in Europe. I did a couple of weddings, and that kind of basically took up the 3 or 4 weeks I had off the bike. And now I'm definitely in the full swing of preseason training. I've done the first preseason training camp with Bahrain down in Calpe in December, where we spent 2 weeks doing sort of a lot of testing, a lot of media stuff, getting the new equipment, meeting the new riders. And now just back home in Andorra training. The weather's pretty cold, but we haven't had too much snow. Most days it's sort of -4 to 4 degrees, let's say, in Andorra. But by the time you get down to Spain to do some training down the valley there, it can be around 10 degrees. So just slowly starting to put in the foundations for next year. And then I have another training camp coming up with the team in January before my first race, which is the one-day race in Valencia, the last weekend of January, and then on to Vuelta Valencia, which will be more of the official kickoff to my season, building up towards the Tour de France. Now, I would like to get a little bit more direction from you guys on the Discord channel. Chip in there. Tell me what you'd like to hear. I'm heading off to Tenerife with just a really small group of riders. There'll be 4 guys there with me, and I'll spend 12 days up there. So if you have any questions around that, please put them in the Escape Collective Discord channel and I can try and answer them. Otherwise, enjoy this chat with Pavel, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Pavel Sivakov, welcome back to the Rest Day. It's been a bit of an off season for the Rest Day so far, and that's going to be a bit of a subject we're going to talk about today because we've just brought in the new year. It's like January 3rd or 4th today, and I thought we'd start off talking about the last time we chatted was after Vuelta Catalunya, where you helped Poggy win the overall and basically everything else in Vuelta Catalunya, and then your season sort of progressed quite well from that point on, and you had a really nice finish to the season. But maybe before we get into that, what did you get up to in the off season? And when did the off season start for you, actually? I mean, yeah, thanks for welcoming me back. It's always a pleasure to have a chat with you. We do chat quite a lot outside the podcast, but yeah, it's always nice to do it and record it. And yeah, I mean, starting with the off-season thing, nothing special really. I mean, we had a team meeting, team building in Abu Dhabi after China, where I finished my racing season. So really to avoid any kind of travel, my partner Lisa just joined me there, and we stayed for one more week, and then kind of enjoyed also a bit of time off in Barca after that. Went to also a wedding, Ivan Cortina's wedding. So yeah, nothing really special in the off season. Was more about staying away from the bike and also keep moving a little bit, some runs here and there, but really I would say it was quite boring off season this year. Really nothing special. You obviously ride for UAE, and that means that this like off season training camp is actually in a pretty cool location. Like most other teams, like either my team doesn't do an off season training camp, we just have one in December. But the fact that your team gets together in Dubai is pretty cool, no? Like what are some of the activities you get up to? Obviously, do you have the bike there? No bike? How many days? It's a week long or?
It's just under a week. I think it's 4 or 5 days. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We go to Abu Dhabi. The activities, it depends on the years. They try to do different stuff every year. This year we had like a zip line from a building. Then we have some sponsor stuff to do. Mostly Pogi, honestly. And other guys, like for me, is quite light for this. We do have the bike because we do one ride with the fans on the track there, on the cycling track in Abu Dhabi. Just like, get together with the fans and then they can join us for a ride. So we do have to take the bikes. And then this year we had karting, but I got sick. So I stayed in bed for the nicest activities, where I think the boys are like a kind of a tournament. They did a nice karting session next to the F1 circuit. It wasn't on the circuit, but it was around there. But yeah, it's always nice, to see the boys, have get together outside the bike. So yeah, it's always actually something you look forward, with your teammates. And the location is pretty cool, that's for sure.
What's the cycling like in Abu Dhabi? Are there many? Like, is there a strong cycling community when you go and do this like sponsor ride?
I think for the locals there, it's kind of complicated to ride most of the year because of the heat. So they have to ride either really early or in the night. But you would be actually surprised. There it was like, I think maybe a couple thousand people welcoming us. So that's pretty nice. I mean, they're really pushing cycling there. That's why the team is for, really. And I think just every year you see more and more people there. Obviously, the team is quite successful, so that helps for that.
I guess now if we move back to the season that has just been, probably a highlight for you was maybe doing the Tour de France with UAE and then winning the overall with Poggi. How was the experience with UAE at Tour de France? Because you'd done one tour before with Ineos, right?
Yeah, I've only done one Tour de France. That was actually quite a horrible experience for me, crashing from day one. And yeah, it was not a nice Tour de France. And for me, like, one of the reasons I also joined UAE was like, I would like to do the tour. And I was actually surprised, Yeah, I was one of the reasons. So I was surprised and not to be there. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, is when you have a rider like Tadej, I would say it's easier not to go into this race because you kind of know that if everything goes well, you have also we had a super strong team, super strong lineup. So it's kind of, you go there with a goal is to win the tour, and it gives extra motivation, when you know that it's most likely to happen if everything goes to plan, and everything went to plan. So it was a really enjoyable experience, I wouldn't say even that's stressful. And we're just doing our job. And, when you have a guy like that, actually, he kind of takes all the pressure away from everyone. And, we had good fun, actually. It was really nice, good atmosphere every day. And, just nice to go out and ride. And, yeah, like I say, I think now on most of the races, when you ride with him, is always easy, I would say.
At what point during the tour did you personally or the team think that they had the tour relatively secured?
Actually, we went really confident to the tour already. I mean, from the start, it was like kind of the goal. We probably knew it was secure. After the Pyrenees, really. We knew after, I think Plateau de Bay was like the biggest hit. After this day, it was like, okay, now it's not likely, like if Tadej doesn't crash or doesn't have a bad day, or you've been there. I think you've seen how good he was and how good the team was, and it was most likely to be for him, and that's what happened. And he just kept his domination, I would say, until the end.
Yeah, I'd say that stage 15 before the second rest day was probably a bit of the nail in the coffin for Jonas, and to have Poggy basically have it secured other than any bad luck, which he didn't have. Did you do anything special after the race with UAE? How does the post-Tour de France or post-Grand Tours normally work there? Because in most teams, you organise at the end of each Grand Tour a small dinner. And then, depending on how the team's done, normally sets the mood for that dinner. So how was the post-tour dinner with UAE?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. We had like, we organized the dinner. We had like kind of standing, snacks and drinks before the main meal, like with a lot of sponsors and also all the team members. So that was quite nice, and we had like a late dinner. But sometimes after a Grand Tour, also everyone is really tired, and it was a good night out. But I think nothing special at the end. It's just a moment you enjoy. I think what I really enjoyed was more like the podium ceremony where all together we also won the team classification. So that was really special. Standing there on the podium. I think that's what I enjoyed the most, and then. Then you go to the dinner, you have nice chats, a few drinks, and then we went to bed. But no, it was a good night.
I actually agree that my favorite part of these end of Grand Tours is normally the part directly after the final stage, when you're all sort of hanging out at the bus, waiting to go back to the hotel. And there's normally like a few beers and there's a pizza or sushi or something, and you're just kind of hanging out there, and it's all a bit more relaxed, because by the time the stage finishes, which is normally late, you go back to the hotel, you're not having dinner until like 10 p.m. Everyone's kind of pretty tired by then and a bit over it. Whereas I really enjoy, like, after the Champs-Elysees, all the buses are parked there, or this year in Nice, all the buses were parked around on the promenade there, and it was actually kind of a bit of a nice time. And then by the time you're actually at dinner, I'm almost ready to go to bed.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's like this moment is like you kind of relieve this team. Everything is done and you can really relax. Actually, this year, I think it was kind of special in a way to have it in Nice. Maybe it's once in history, but I've done once, finishing on the Champs-Elysees, and you really miss that vibe where the buses are parked. I don't know, it's kind of different. There is this little extra thing.
No, the Champs-Elysees is special, like especially when you're going past the Louvre.
Yeah.
And you have the jets also fly over when you're on the Champs-Elysees. That's actually one of the coolest experiences in cycling, and not doing it there last year was a bit of a shame, but it was also, like you said, probably a once in a lifetime opportunity that you do the tour that doesn't finish in Paris. And finishing with a time trial, I don't know if it was good or not. Like, it was kind of nice. I really enjoyed the day. I think I spoke about it with someone else on a previous podcast, but it's kind of strange finishing with a time trial. I don't really like it. I've done quite a few times also at the Giro, finishing with a TT, and also this year Vuelta.
Yeah, that's true actually. And I'm not a big fan. I think like in the race, there is a lot of stages, especially in the tour, it's quite full on. So you don't even have time to chat with your mates, like also from other teams. And for me, what's nice, finishing on like in the Champs-Elysees, you have like this, 80% of the stage where you can just hang around, just have a quick chat, enjoy the last ride, and then you go. With the TT, is like, okay, if you don't do GC, you can kind of relax, but still, you still have to go quite deep, to be honest, even just to make time cuts. So it's like kind of a last effort. I didn't really enjoy I was quite tired in Nice, and okay, it was nice finishing there, but the process, like in the TT, I was suffering quite a lot.
Yeah, it also ended up being a pretty long day as well. By the time you sort of hang around the TTs in the afternoon, you're sort of waiting around. Now, after the tour, you actually went on to do Vuelta. Second half of the season was probably a bit of a highlight for yours when you look back at the results. You obviously, you were second, or you won Giro d'Abruzzo?
Yeah, I won the last stage and I was second on GC, I think, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. But obviously, it's always nice to win. That's for sure. But I would say, like you say, like Vuelta and Lombardia, I think that was the highlights for me. I've really stepped up after the tour physically, and I really enjoyed racing. Actually, like you say, I was injured before Catalonia, so really I start my season in Catalonia, and from that point until the end, I had 80 race days, so it was quite full on. And I think what kept me going is also the team being so successful. I was really eager to win something also myself, or to perform myself, and like you see the other boys like winning, and you also feel like you want to do that, and that's what kept like this motivation to keep going for me. And finishing in China, where I still like perform quite good. Actually, I did some of my best numbers, but the race doesn't really suit my characteristics. So no, I think I really enjoyed that second part of the season. Just enjoy racing, trying, attacking, and it was nice also supporting Tadej in Lombardia, also with Worlds, where I was in a break with him for a little bit, which was a really hard race as well. But all this second or last part of the season was quite a highlight for me.
On the success of the team being a motivator, I think it's actually something that gets a little bit underappreciated. For example, this year, Bahrain didn't really have the greatest season result-wise, and then you sort of felt that pressure was building in the team to try and find the results, and it was almost as if we were trying to force something that wasn't really there. Whereas in your position, when you're riding for a team like UAE and you have a rider like Poggy, the results seem to come a bit easier, and then when they come easier, like you said, you get more motivated to try and search for the result yourself. And I think having that team atmosphere really plays a big part of elite or professional sport.
Yeah, I think it's like a snowball effect. It's like Tadej being as strong as he is takes away some pressure from like other, like let's say, leaders in the team, and they can win. And then the guys, maybe, the other riders also can win. And it's just that you see everyone winning, even small races. Actually, I think this minor calendar is quite important for the team dynamics, because even if you win like every week a small race, is also good just to have these victories in the team and just keep going. If you only focus on the big races, I think nowadays, if you have like a Tadej or Jonas, Remco on the race, the chances to win is a bit lower, and finishing third is always a good result, but for the team, they always want the victory. And I think, also we do a lot of like smaller races, and that's why we win so much. And I think that's why also the team dynamic is so good, is because of all these little victories, they just add up, and then big victories comes as well. So I agree, it's a bit underrated, I would say, sometimes.
I think cycling's in a bit of a weird spot at the moment, where we have so many dominant riders that seem to be a little bit of a step above everyone else. Like you have maybe, like you said, those 5 or 6 riders that are considerably higher level than the rest of the field. And if you're constantly only doing World Tour racing, it's very hard to win. And I think you'll start to see more and more teams doing this second and third sort of tier programs to get some of the race wins and to get some confidence and to get those UCI points, like we're coming into next year where is the relegation period. And I think you'll see more and more teams searching out those smaller 0.1 races to try and, one, get some momentum and confidence in the riders and the team with good results, but also for the UCI points. Because like you said, if you go to only Catalunya, Paris-Nice, País Vasco, Romandy, these races, you always come there against Poggi, Jonas, Remco, Primoz, and it becomes incredibly difficult to get that win, which is what the team's looking for.
Yeah, I think now is almost like choosing the good race calendar is becoming even more important, especially for, like, let's say, the better riders in some teams where you don't have this guy. Also, this old school thinking that, I don't know, maybe some of the highest paid riders, they need to go on the bigger races. Maybe that will change also a little bit. Because like you say, I don't know, like 100% Tadej is really hard to beat. And I don't know, sometimes maybe if you like send one guy to win a bunch of these smaller races, also like you say, for the relegation, for a team like Astana, which is in trouble, you send like a guy who is capable of winning these smaller races, he might be able to save the team. But in the other hand, maybe the management is going to say, okay, you're the highest paid, you need to win the World Tour races. But in reality, you have to look at it like, it's maybe not possible. So I think some teams will have to rethink this and make good choices. At the end of the day, it's just adapting to how cycling is evolving. Is nothing bad with it, I would say.
I want to talk more about this salary cap that has been spoken about a little bit later on in this podcast. But for the moment, I want to come back to Worlds. Was it the first Worlds you did with France?
No, actually, I did Wollongong.
Second time doing Worlds with the French team. How was it? Like you spoke about before, you were in the breakaway with Poggi at one point, and I think the end result that you got at Worlds probably doesn't indicate how strong you were at the race, because you were quite animated during the race, and then it was just at the end, it seems like the legs started to fall off a little bit. But
actually, it's true. I always enjoy going with the French team. I think Thomas Vauclair, for me, is really amazing how he can like choose the good riders and the ability he has to bond them together, like to race in the one jersey. Most of us will race for different teams the whole year, but when we are with the national team, we're like, there is no real egos. You might think some guys they have egos, but actually with him is like, I guess he can, he transpire this thing that is one for all, and I always enjoy going back with the national team. And for the racing part, I mean, I was actually on a really good day. The plan was for me to anticipate, which I did, and I found myself in a really strong group. Actually, I think was Jay Vine in there, Magnus Kort, who else? Tobias Foss, Lawrence de Plus. So it was like a lot of really strong riders, and I was like, now we are like one step ahead, and I didn't really dig that deep so far. Like, I'm feeling pretty good, and really trying to follow Tadej was like animating the race, but also it ended my race because I had to go so deep just to stay with him. And you don't have many bullets on a race like that. You probably only have one. And I spent my bullet trying to follow him, and then I was done. And that's how, I was thinking maybe I will be able to recover, and if I can recover and stay with him at least until like the last lap, is like probably a big chance of medal. But he was just on another planet that day, and he just crushed me. I think like he did with all the other riders, and it was just impressive to see actually, looking back at it.
Now, this is probably more of a question for the fans of the sport. Is it weird when you come up against someone like Tadej, who is your teammate that you spend all the Tour de France working for, and then there's one race a year where you race for your national team, and he's now your competitor? Was it like, was there anything, did you guys speak at all when he caught you, or was there any, like, it's a bit strange, like you spend 99% of the year working for him, and then you're racing against him at this point?
I think when you are with teammates at Worlds, like, is always, how to say it, is not that one extra respect, I would say, maybe. When he joins, like, maybe if I wasn't his teammate, he wouldn't have waited for me, after like the climb was in two parts, and there he waited for me. I don't know. I think he wouldn't have done that if I wasn't his teammate. But then on the other hand, if you think like having a rider in your wheel is always a benefit with the drag. So there is two parts, but I'm pretty sure if I was from another team, he wouldn't have done that. So there is always this extra, a little bit like friendship, that you can have. But at the end of the day, when it comes, or like when you fight for position, you're not gonna, flick your teammates, It's always like this extra thing. But then when it comes to pure racing, it's like, it's how it is, He's not gonna wait for me when he drops me, It's like when he really drops me, not like it was then.
Yeah, I would agree that it's more of like you have a very respectful, competitive view on it. Whereas the same thing is if I have friends in another team, you maybe give them a little bit more space in the peloton than you would give someone that you're not friends with. But if there's a moment you need to close that gap, you still close it on your friend.
Exactly.
You always have this tiny extra split second of thinking where you're like, as my friend, I maybe leave a little bit of extra space. I think the same thing happens with teammates when you go to world championships and they become your competitor after you spend most of the season being friends or teammates. Now, racing in China, you did Guangxi once before, right?
Yeah, it was the second time.
What's your opinion of racing in China? Do you enjoy it? Do you think it's good to finish the race calendar there? Do you think it's just bit of a weird thing that the UCI does to have a race in China?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one. I think it's quite nice. I like to race overseas, to be honest. It's always nice to have a trip, like race on different roads. I was quite motivated this year because I was still in good shape. I wanted a good result. I just finished Lombardia, so I think quite often it comes to how do you go there? Like, is it your choice or is it like, the team just want to flick you kind of and just send you there? I think you will approach these kind of races differently, I mean, if you're there on, if you want to go there, you want to be there, you can always find, you're going to enjoy the race because actually it's quite safe. It's really big roads, perfect tarmac. The level is not crazy high, just to finish this race is not crazy, but it's a long trip. But sometimes, when you're tired and it's your job, so you're kind of forced to go there, but you don't really want to be there, then I think going to Guangxi is like a bit more, of pain in the ass, I would say, but
maybe just a bit more mentally hard. Like you said, if you've been told that you need to go to Guangxi in March and for the last 7 months that you're going
this
there.
Is different.
And then you're mentally prepared for the fact you're like, right, I'm going to finish my season quite late. I need to do this 14 or 16 hour travel to get to the middle of nowhere, China, to do a week racing. You can sort of get your head around it. But if you get told that you need to go to Guangxi in September, then you're like, oh shit, it kind of ruins like some of my holiday plans. Or
for me, this type of racing would be so much nicer if there would be more to gain for different type of riders. Like if the race course is a bit more versatile, like Guangxi is like every day like bunch sprint, and then you have one uphill finish of 10 minutes where it's just a 10-minute effort really. I think if you make the route a little bit more appealing for like breakaway riders or like maybe even climbers, a bit of a harder stage, it would be so much nicer because we all want to win or do something at the end of the day, and we would have this motivation. You look at the profile like, oh, okay, this stage look interesting, and maybe I'll have a go. Everyone end of season, like a lot of the riders are tired, but when it's like this, okay, you have one stage in, like for me, I was in top shape, really good shape, but still, I was like, it was nice to be there, but I wish the racing was harder.
I think, like you said, there's a very niche type of rider that can win a race like Guangxi. It's someone that can do a ridiculous amount of watts per kilo for 10 minutes, because otherwise every other stage is just a relatively easy bunch sprint. And then you just do, I don't know what it was, 150 kilometers to the bottom of this 10-minute climb, or 180 kilometers and like you said, you're in some of the best shape of the year, and you did, I think you said, some of your best power numbers ever on this climb. But finally, you're a slightly bigger rider you're not 60 kilos doing crazy watts. It's just very hard for you to realistically, mathematically get a result.
But not even for me. I mean, some riders, like breakaway riders, what are the chances for them to go like to the end, like when it's totally flat, when you have teams controlling behind? I think if you make the course a little bit more interesting, I would go back really. Like, why not? It's like, it's always more relaxed to race overseas. I don't know why. You have like, all the staff is a bit more relaxed. I don't know, everyone like last race. It's quite a nice vibe, to be honest. That's the last one. And, but yeah, for sure, like you see the roads there, you see the mountains. I'm like, for sure they can make something really nice around here. I think that would really bring more riders, like even like really good riders. Why not to go in there and even for the race, that would be a good thing, because it's like all for sprinters, and then one like punchy guy, like you say, light and punchy watts per kilo test. That's it.
I would really like to see more races done outside of Europe. Like I think it would be really good for the sport of cycling in general, for recreational cycling and getting people more involved, but also the professional side of the sport to attract more sponsors to it. Because finally, we basically just race in Europe, other than the 2 races in Canada. Yeah. Guangxi and Australia.
Yeah, we really miss some of these American races now, I think. This was, I've done California once, and I remember it was really nice race. And I think I've been chatting to quite a lot of riders, and everyone is saying that we miss this North American races. But I still also think Asia could be a nice place, just because of the how it is. There is mountains, there is all kind of terrains. So these 2 places.
I also think there's a massive recreational cycling community in Asia as well. Like when you see on social media, a lot of people in Thailand or in Indonesia, or even to an extent China, like you said, I think they could put on a really good race, and having sponsors like the X Labs that is coming in with Stana or the brand of bike, or the exact sponsor they have. It'd be kind of cool to see more sponsors from outside of just Europe getting into the sport. And I think that requires us doing a bit more racing to get a bit more awareness.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I think that would be nice for cycling and also nice for riders. I mean, it's always nice I always enjoy going on a long trip, discovering. I went to Australia a few times. It's always a trip I remember really well. And also Canada is also some of my favorite races. So yeah, it would be nice. Maybe it's gonna come with Asian market. Going into the world tour, like you say, with X Lab. So maybe it's gonna keep growing.
Preparation for the 2025 season is pretty well underway now. Majority of teams do a training camp in December.
Yeah.
I did 2 weeks down in the region of Calpe, Altea.
Yeah, we've been nearby. Area. Yeah.
I think almost 90% of the teams go to that area of Spain.
I think this year even more. Used to be Ineos and Bora in Mallorca. I think now it's only Bora in Mallorca. Everyone else.
Yeah, almost everyone else is in this Calpe region in Andalusia. For us in Bahrain, we mostly just do a week of meetings, photos. You need to do the UCI medical check.
Yeah.
You get some new equipment, some new clothing. You get your new bikes for the next year. Is basically the same UAE? Oh, yeah, actually,
it is.
You did get that new bike.
I was one of the riders who didn't get the new bike. Mine wasn't ready, where they were missing some handlebars, but yeah, I didn't try the new bike yet. So I'm looking forward to try this. And they are still fixing some stuff with the new bike, but they should come really soon this year. And basically it's the same as you. It's quite busy. Like you have to train around this, and yeah, it's a bit challenging because these activities around, you come back from training, quick lunch, and then you have something to do. So I think this takes like a bit of a toll physically by the end of the camp. But then usually the second week is a bit more like relaxed. You have a bit more time to recover, can enjoy a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as us. So the first week, you kind of almost need to mentally write off training, and training becomes the second priority, and the first priority is basically just like doing all these meetings, talking about the race calendar, doing your new profile photos, doing some silly videos for the team's social media and all this kind of stuff. And then by the time the second week comes around, some of the media people have gone home. It becomes a little bit more of just like a normal training camp.
Yeah, I think, it's like this as well. It was like this as well for us. But in one hand, I also think positively about it. I'm like, I think it's also quite easy to be super keen in December. If it would be only training, and maybe you're like too good too soon, especially when you're like in a team environment, you're like kind of pushing that little extra bit. And I think, seasons are super long, and now we are like, just to be in the world where I think we're all really professional, and it's quite easy also to be in that really good shape too early. So it depends at what point you are in your training phase. But I was thinking about it. I came like quite fit into the camp, so I was like, okay, now for me it's no problem to kind of back off my training, and really I still have a good amount of time before the first races.
How has the preseason changed? You've been professional quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And probably similar to me, you've seen a little bit of the pre-COVID cycling and then probably the post-COVID cycling. I always try to refer to it in that terms of like 2020 and before and 2020 and after, because I really feel as though that was a big change in cycling, professional cycling especially. And I definitely see a distinct change in how the preseason is done now compared to when I was first professional in Green Edge. The preseason was quite different. What are some of the things you've noticed that are different?
I think you're like, definitely now we are much more fit in December than we used to be. I think it's also, because from the first race, everyone is so much better. And you already have to be in really good condition, I think, in January. But I've noticed this as well, was like really slow start, building into it. Even December was not as crucial as now, but now it's really, you have to be on it already. From the moment you're back on the bike, you have to be like, okay, now it starts already.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that even in Green Edge, we very rarely did training camp in December. And then maybe there was an optional training camp in January because half the team were Australian. They went back to Australia. Then the people that decided to stay in Europe, it was more of an optional training camp. And it was more of just like a fun hanging out training. Yeah. There was no real pressure of doing intervals and all this kind of stuff. Whereas now I see it that already there's a massive focus on nutrition in the December camp. We have 3 nutritionists there helping the riders. All the training is sort of very professional now. And I just think the overall level of cycling has really stepped up, and it's stepped up from like December until the end of October almost. The whole season now has become 10 months of like very professional work, whereas previously you just had riders that would sort of really lock down for 3 or 4 months before the tour or 3 months before the Giro, and then that's when they really put a lot of focus on it. Whereas now I see basically the whole year everyone is super focused and everyone is looking for areas to improve throughout the year rather than just in certain critical points.
Yeah, but maybe it's also like, the best riders like Tadej, they are good all year. So riders that are good only, let's say a good example is actually G, is one of the riders that I respect the most, but he always has like one crazy peak. He's gonna podium a Grand Tour every year. But then I think this type of rider is really kind of disappearing because maybe it's not the teams, that's not what they want. They want someone who's able to provide from January until December, who is always there. And I think this type of guys is like, this trend is really disappearing. You don't see that anymore. I think he's the last man standing really that can do that. I think G is really the last guy that is doing it.
But I think that only changed after COVID.
Yeah, definitely.
And with like Tadej and Jonas and Remco and Primoz coming in that were good from almost the first race to the last race that they did, that those type of riders that, you had a specialization or a target of the year was, right, my goal is to podium Tour de France.
Yeah.
And then Vuelta Valencia, terrible. Vuelta Catalunya, terrible. Romandy, maybe you're right. And then Dauphiné, flying. Tour de France, podium. Whereas now it's like Tadej's winning Vuelta Valencia in February.
But you have to be really strong mentally to be able to be like crap on some races. And then you are there always. I'm always surprised on how he's doing it. Is like he's not going at all on some races leading to it. And then in 1 month, he's able to turning it around like in a crazy way. I think mentally, physically, everything. Like I've done a lot of camps with him, and he just goes into this bubble, full diet, full regime, like training really well. And I'm like, it's not possible that he's going to be like, I don't know, this much % better. But then he's always there on when he needs to be. And that's really his training. I think that's, really impressive. It's almost, you have to be almost more, stronger mentally to do this than the other way.
So myself and G had quite a similar race program in 2023. I did the Giro, and I remember the whole lead up in Vuelta Catalunya, he was terrible. And then even in Tour of the Alps, which was only maybe 2 weeks before the Giro.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. He didn't have the greatest level.
Yeah, he was good, but I was like, okay, this is not like podium level. Like he's not going to podium the Giro with these legs.
And literally like 3 or 4 weeks after Tour of the Alps, he was in the pink jersey at the Giro. And I was just like, how? And like you said, the thing that I have the most respect for there is the mental aspect of being able to believe so much in the process that you're going through that you will be good when it matters. Because if you just look at his race results, there was no sort of indication that he would be in podium level condition at the Giro. But I guess he just had this belief that he would be. And do you think now that that's just changed, where you were saying that G would sort of really lock down for, I don't know, 2 months leading into the Giro, that now people just do that for 10?
I guess they do I guess we will see a trend of maybe shorter careers. But it's like now you can see the salaries went up. Maybe, at the end of the day, these riders are going to make probably the similar amount of money in these shorter careers, but it's going to be more demanding mentally, physically. You have to be really in this bubble. Maybe not. I know G is like now not as much, but he could do also extremes with the diet, with the training. He could train really hard, really long, dieting a lot. I think you cannot do a whole season like this. You have to find a balance, but definitely, I think also seeing youngsters performing like Tadej. I think some riders, they kind of hope they are this new thing, and maybe they kind of compare themselves, and if they're not performing straight away or not performing all the time, they also start to doubt mentally. So you have to take a step back and really focus on yourself. But I do think we will see shorter careers anyway.
I want to talk about the salaries and the salary cap. But this year, Bahrain signed a lot of new young riders mostly. And I don't know about you, but it's crazy when you see some of these young riders coming into the World Tour, how professional they are and how much pressure they put on themselves at such a young age, not having even done 1 year in the professional ranks. I remember when I turned professional, I was basically just like so grateful just to be given the opportunity that I never even expected or put any pressure on myself to get results straight away. Like it was more about the team was saying like, oh, don't worry, Jack, like just get through the race, like do what you can, like get the bottles, like try to get the breakaway, like no worries about results. And I remember I did my first Grand Tour and it was mostly just get through the Grand Tour was kind of like the goal. Whereas now like I see some of these new young riders in December training camp, so like hyper focused, and like we did some testing there, and like they just put so much pressure on themselves to have a good test, and like that test was like the be all and end all. And I don't know, I just see it'll be interesting where the sport goes in the next 5 years, I think.
I mean, I also, when I was younger, if we would do a test, I would also put pressure on myself. I wanted to be like, good on the test. And, when I joined Sky, but definitely I think when I joined pro as well, I didn't have the same knowledge as these guys. These guys are basically, you can chat with them. Probably you can learn from some of, I don't know, nutrition or aerodynamics, because they are really into this stuff. It's like next level. And at the end of the day, it's just, changing the sport that we need to accept is that kind of normal. I think it's not only in our sport that people come younger and younger. It's just like all this in these past few years. I think it's not about sport. It's all the access to information that we have now is so much higher than when we were younger. And it's just going to get more and more. And, but I agree. I think then maybe for them it's going to be harder mentally. You really need a good group of people around you to guide you in a good way and to support you in a good way. I think that's going to be really important, because it's going to be easy to... The problem is, I think, is that you go into the adult life a bit too early because you're not ready for it. You kind of like, like maybe you were living with your parents, you don't know how to cook and you don't know how to live. And then you sign a good contract and you have to pay tax and you have to rent a home, you have to buy a car, and you're not ready for this. And that's the problem for me.
I was actually having this conversation with someone about this, that as professional cyclists, you almost skip that young adulthood that majority of people go through, where they go to university, they live in a share house, they work in McDonald's for minimum wage, and like you learn all these small little steps and life lessons along the way. Whereas I turned professional at the end of my under 23 years. So I was 21 or 22 years old. Whereas like you see some of these young guys that are 19, they turn professional. And just in those extra 3 years that I had, I feel as though I learned a lot of life lessons. Whereas like you said, when you're 19 and all of a sudden you're making 100 to 300,000 euros a year, you need to rent a house, you need to figure out how to pay taxes. Like you get all these responsibilities put on you and all this pressure put on you at an age where you're probably not ready for it.
Yeah, I think that's why the U23 years are good. It's not because of the physical or racing skills or whatever. It's more for this period where you're like kind of transitioning from juniors, where you're still a kid, to like an adult. You learn a little bit.
Yeah, just life maturity.
Yeah.
Not so much cycling maturity, just like life maturity to prepare yourself for. Now, I had a few questions on the Escape Collective Discord channel talking about the proposed salary cap, minimum salaries and transfer fees, because we've started to see more and more riders breaking contracts and going to different teams, searching for maybe better contracts or better opportunities. And some people sort of brought up the point around other professional sports leagues like football, American football, basketball, hockey, NBA, and how there's like a really big, powerful, almost like athlete union that gets together to help have a collective negotiation to protect the athletes. But in cycling, I'm not sure if the sport's at a high enough level that a salary cap would make sense. I don't know if you had Adam Hansen come and talk to you guys during the December training camp. He came to Bahrain and he's brought up the point about salary caps and the CPA, which is the riders union.
Yeah, he was there, but I was on a meeting, like you would say, so I missed that thing. But yeah, I agree. I don't think the sport is big enough for a salary cap. I think it's like we talked before. The problem is that you have 4 riders who are dominating the world tour. I don't think like let's say our team, if we have Tadej in the team, okay, you have the rest, but we'll still be the most successful team because he would win the Tour de France this year. So yeah, and also it's kind of now I see the sport is really growing. There is more and more investment into it, and putting a salary cap would kind of stop this growth. It would be stupid. It would also penalize, like, let's say actually the least paid riders almost, because the most paid riders, the teams would always pay for them, but then the other guys, they would get probably penalized from this.
So something that we spoke about was if this was brought in by the UCI, it would probably be the current riders that suffer the most and probably the riders in the middle salary bracket.
Yeah.
But potentially in 5 years' time, maybe it's better for the sport. But it's the riders now that would need to make the sacrifice to make that improvement to the sport.
Yeah.
And I think that rather than employing some kind of salary cap or budget cap for teams, it would be more interesting if some of the bigger parties involved, like race organizers, like the UCI, that have more of a long-term sort of investment strategy in the sport, that they can take a bit of a budget loss to distribute some of that money to some of the smaller teams to try and improve the lower end of the sport so that they would see improvement in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, rather than the current athlete now sort of suffering to make the sport better in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, our careers are so short that if the sport is better in 5 years' time, it's probably not going to benefit me or you.
Yeah, I mean, for us, 5 years is a lot. Like, it's probably, it's going to make our future life, let's say, if this 5 years is like what we're going to earn to live later, this is a strange way of living as an athlete, and these 5 years are really important. So definitely sacrificing, it's a hard ask for us. It's like more like the organizers or everything, all that stuff.
And I also don't think that the budgets of teams now are quite high enough that if you took a percentage, like if you took 10% of UAE's budget, because you said that they were too much over the budget cap, and then distributed that 10%, if it's 50 million, the budget of UAE, that's 5 million. Then you distribute that between the bottom 5 teams. That's $1 million a team, which and doesn't actually change that much. Whereas if you're dealing with like these bigger sports that are like NBA or Formula One, where you're dealing in hundreds of millions, then that 10% that you take and then redistribute to the small teams actually makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's true.
Whereas I think at the moment, the sport needs to probably focus on just trying to improve the growth of it. Because like you said, we were seeing more and more investment into the sport. The riders' salaries are slowly going up, which is really good to see. The team budget seems to be going up. But there is definitely a bit of a budget and performance gap between 4 or 5 teams at the very top and then the 4 or 5 teams at the very bottom. And I think we need to figure out a way to...
But I don't think, even if you look at the UCI points, I don't think the teams that are completely at the bottom are the teams that have the lowest budgets. I'm not sure, actually.
No, I would also agree with this, but just to close that gap a little bit, so that, I don't know, the smallest World Tour team budget, I have no idea, but let's say 8 million compared to 50 million.
Yeah.
If it was instead 12 million and 50 million, just to close this small gap there. But I'm not sure that the way to do that is to put a budget cap at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure the sport is at a big enough level.
No, definitely not. It's not like Formula One. People kind of take the Formula One example where they put a budget cap, I think, and then the sport did become a little bit more interesting, like you say, 5 years later. But I don't think we are at this level where... Yeah, it's probably it was probably not the drivers that were not benefiting of the budget cap. It was more like the race car. You couldn't invest in the build of the race car, and then at the end of the day, like the drivers, for them it didn't change that much. But for us, it would be a massive change because these budgets in teams, most of it's on the salaries. It's not on the R&D of a car or a bike, and I think that's where it would be. Yeah, a bit complicated, It's like you say, if you redistribute this money, then you couldn't get some of the best riders anyway. So what's the point of doing this? Where would they put this money? I mean, it's also not enough to make, I don't know, maybe you would do a few wind tunnel testing extra here and there, but it wouldn't be that big of a change for the result at the end of the day. So,
because I think from a World Tour team's budget, something like 80 or 90% of the team's budget is just rider salaries. Because we don't really spend any money on R&D. Because all the R&D is done by the bike manufacturer, whether that's Specialized or Merida or Colnago, outside of the team.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think the budget cap is very different to what you're saying, like in the Formula One.
Yeah.
It's the car is
where
such
it's a
big
constructor, so you cannot really compare these two sports.
And then the last thing would be, what do you think about riders breaking contracts and transferring teams? I think we saw Maxime Van Gils.
Yeah.
It was a pretty high profile one.
Yeah, I think sometimes I think if a rider really wants to leave, you have to let him go, but it's better like for both, to go separate ways. But I think, like, let's say for the example of Van Gils, Lotto, they probably didn't see it coming. They didn't plan to replace him, and like also for the sponsor, I think was a big hit. He was one of their best riders, so I think there should be some kind of system where, some financial maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did get the money, so I guess they did get the money. I don't know the ins of it, but
maybe to summarize the question a bit better, do you think having a transfer window or having a more open way of riders transferring between teams and a bit of a transfer market would be good or bad for the sport?
I guess it will be good. So maybe some of the smaller teams, they could even make money out of it. Like we were talking about salary caps, but this would be actually more interesting if a small team like Wanty, they have a really good young rider that UAE wants. They could like kind of start negotiating, okay, we'll let him go for this amount of money. And then maybe that would be also a way to make some money. And then it's UAE money that goes to Wanty, but it's not a cap for UAE also to keep the sport growing. And that would be actually quite interesting to have this. I mean, it would become maybe crazy at some times, but why not? I think it's a good idea.
I think it would be interesting. I don't know exactly how you could implement it, but at the moment, it's a very sort of, the rider contracts are very close and it's quite hard to implement a transfer. Like you've seen, like it doesn't happen very often. And when it does happen, it normally becomes this high profile thing. But I think it would be more interesting to have a slightly more open way of doing this.
Yeah, but I think also one part actually I just thought is like, Van Gils breaking his contract like this, okay, it was from him, but then it can also go the other way around. Like, let's say you're not performing and you're having like, I don't know, you're struggling mentally or you bad luck or something, and the team is like, okay, we want to get rid of this guy. And that's maybe the security we can also lose. So I think it's better to find a way where everyone is on the same page, and when you're like, okay, you want to leave, we can do this, and you just let the rider go. Not like that, where it's like kind of a conflict between the two parties, and then at the end of the day, if it keeps going like this next year, another rider, the teams will be like, oh, okay, this guy, I pay him that much, okay, I'm just gonna fire him, but you sign a contract.
I don't know how it works in the NBA or other sports well enough to be able to make a judgment, but you're right, there needs to be like a very fair and open way that it works, that all parties are sort of happy with it, that it's teams not firing riders that are maybe underperforming, and it's not riders then breaking contracts with teams wanting to leave just because they're getting offered double what they're being paid because they've had one good year, and then that team loses out and that sponsor of that team loses out on that rider's 3-year contract, for example. Now, I think we better wrap this up because you're going to need to head off and have a massage. Thanks for coming.
No worries. Always a pleasure.
And we'll try and catch up again at another time. What's your first race?
Valenciana.
Me too. I'll see you there. So maybe after Valenciana, we can have another catch up and
definitely
see what's going on.
Perfect.
All right, mate. Thanks. Cool.